I was born 87 years ago. For 65 years, I've ruled as Tamriel's emperor. But for all these years, I've never been the ruler of my own dreams. I have seen the gates of Oblivion, beyond which no waking eye may see.
Uriel Septim VII, rightful successor of Pelagius Septim IV, has lived both the life of a king and a prisoner, a life that is usually never bestowed upon such prominent royalty. Uriel Septim VII has indirectly been the main catalyst of nearly every single Elder Scrolls game throughout the franchise's life cycle. Tamriel's iconic lore and history has in one way or another been impacted by Uriel Septim VII's interference as the Emperor of Tamriel. All of the heroes and champions except the last Dragonborn have had tightly knit connections to this Emperor and have been given missions to either save him or help him restore the Empire's glory to an extent. In the Elder Scrolls I arena, the first installment of our glorious franchise, the protagonist known as the Eternal Champion was tasked with reassembling the Staff of Chaos, in which Jagar Tharn's life force was withheld. Jagar Tharn was Uriel Septim's personal battle mage, and one of the most substantial deceivers an emperor could have by his side. Jagar successfully sent his own emperor, Uriel Septim VII, into an unknown realm of Oblivion, and masks himself as the emperor. Jagar's deception might have fooled the Elder Council and Empire, but as Fallout implies, war never changes. In the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall, after Emperor Uriel Septim VII gets rescued from the depths of Oblivion, his whole outlook on leadership shifts from aggression, ambition, and territoriality to carefully restoring the Empire's pillaged reputation. Tharn completely neglected and disregarded imperial affairs, which led the petty kingdoms of High Rock, Hammerfell, and Orsinium to start rebelling against the territorial legitimacy and authority of the Empire. This event was known as the Imperial Simulacrum, or however you pronounce that, I'm not sure, a period which indicated Jagar Tharn's destructive reign. And upon Uriel's return from Oblivion, he accomplished moderate reparations by employing the help of specialized branches created by the group sworn to protecting the Septim Emperors, the Blades. Emperor Uriel Septim VII personally deployed the protagonist of Daggerfall, known as the Agent, to rehabilitate relations with the petty kingdoms of the Iliac Bay, in hopes of uniting the Iliac Bay under the Empire's statute. At first, it seemed like tensions were high. Kingdoms across the Iliac Bay were at each other's throats, begging for someone to initiate a full-blown war. But the Agent's interference started an event known as the Dragon Break, that was evoked by the activation of Tiber Septim's designated Alinor Obliterator, the Numidium. This particular Dragon Break ended with the unification of the Iliac Bay, ruled by 4 well-known states under the Empire's statute. Petty kingdoms were subdued and implemented into one of the 4 existing states, which ended tensions and set forth the miracle of peace. These 4 states were Sentinel, Daggerfall, Wayrest, and Orsinium in all of its glory. Uriel Septim VII was highly praised for the single-handed revival of such a distinguished and restless region covering notable parts of High Rock and Hammerfell, and not to mention the sophisticated orcs of Orsinium. With High Rock and Hammerfell fully swearing oath to the Emperor again, the Empire entered a period of tranquility, which resembled the Empire's state in the earlier years of Uriel's rule. With the Imperial Heartland and most of the West under Imperial control, Emperor Uriel VII focused his mind on Morrowind, or Vardenfell more precisely. Uriel concentrated his cunning manipulation towards inserting a Blades operative to disrupt the harmony of Vardenfell's great houses. This Blades agent would soon subject himself to the trials of the Nerevarine, trials which would reveal the authentic reincarnation of Azura's brutally murdered champion in Doral Nerevar. Uriel was pleasantly surprised by this, seeing as how his vision for the destabilization of the Great Houses coincided with Azura's Nerevarine prophecy. a prophecy which morally ties the Nerevarine to properly right the tribunal's wrongs. Only what Uriel had in mind was to dissect the Daedric worship throughout Morrowind by aiding the Nerevarine so he could ultimately introduce the 9 divines into ordinary Dunmeri faith. Uriel utilized his secretive agents and the Nerevarine to shift political powers towards the Empire's allied court, King Helset's court in Mournhold. The orthodox tribunal cults of Morrowind dissipated, and the political power of the great houses was barely noticeable. The Nerevarine assuredly completed his task in aiding Azura and the Emperor Uriel Septim VII in enforcing divine faith amongst the Dunmer, which eased the citizens of Morrowind into stricter imperial supervision from the Empire, thus fully uniting Morrowind without religious resistance and letting the Nerevarine fade into Dunmeri folklore. Some have tried disputing the legitimacy of Uriel's innocence about the Nerevarine prophecy. It seems hugely coincidental that he accidentally sent an operative that actually turned out to be the Nerevarine to crush the monolithic religion of the Tribunal in an effort to destabilize the Great Houses. But maybe future installments will release classified papers on Uriel's probable knowledge about Azura's prophecy and why he knew how to exploit it for the Empire's benefits. This also might be tied into his endless years of dreaming in the depths of Oblivion, which somehow subjected him to Azura's prophecy. We'll never know. His persistence reshaped the Empire into a confederation of dominance and prosperity, much like what we saw during Tiber Septim's golden reign. Uriel invested his empire's resources into general wealth as much as he did into maintaining its former perception of dogmatic authority, which in turn allowed the empire's economy to grow rapidly. This is mainly why scholars compare Uriel Septim VII's reign to that of his distant predecessor, Tiber Septim.
I am your emperor, Uriel Septim. By the grace of the gods, I serve Tamriel as her ruler.
Uriel's childhood and adolescent years closely mirrored those of an ordinary individual raised in a royal family. He has been subjected to nothing but prestige since birth. But what initially set him apart from his other relatives was his exceptional skills as a diplomat and bold aggressor. He inherited and inadvertently multiplied his father's skill in pursuing combative but yet partially diplomatic policies, which in turn proved to be highly effective in the reunification of Tamriel, a wish which Uriel's father Pelagius Septim IV was determined on envisioning. The earlier life of this emperor after his father's death and his coronation consisted of him successfully forwarding his father's deathbed wish. Uriel made it his goal to increase imperial influence and traditions throughout the east of Tamriel, more precisely Morrowind and Blackmarsh, places which were practically forbidden to human citizens of the Empire. Even though native traditions and cultures heavily opposed the Empire's values in those two provinces, Uriel still invested the Empire's resources into alleviating imperial reputation amongst native Dunmer folk and the Argonians of Blackmarsh. Although Uriel did profitably succeed, a huge chunk of the credibility for it was given to Uriel's personal battle mage, named Jagar Tharn, a name we're quite familiar with. Tharn's magical finesse fully sustained Uriel's tactical advances into the smaller parts of Morrowind, and helped Uriel ease imperial control into one of the great houses of Morrowind, House Halelu or House Halalu. House Halalu was quite close to the Cyrodiil border, and they didn't need a lot of convincing to invite imperial law into its political system. Their support for the Empire proved useful in Uriel's territorial expansion into Morrowind, mainly because of their highly influential status throughout Vvardenfell. Tharn's wit was beneficial if not substantial in his earlier reign. Uriel completely trusted Tharn and undoubtedly informed him about many of the Empire's secret political schemes. But, as we all know, Tharn betrayed his undisputed trust and imprisoned a literal emperor into a dimension of oblivion. Prior to Uriel's imprisonment, Uriel married Princess Kala of Araya. But despite his provincial success and rapid growth, Uriel's wife Varaya was a profoundly unpleasant person to endure. A huge strain was put on their marriage due to Uriel expressing his discomfort and dislike towards her authentic personality. Call of Araya gave birth to 3 sons, with all of them being simultaneously affected by the consequences of an unhappy marriage. Uriel came to recognize that this marriage was in fact a mistake, yet it was something he couldn't at all fix. Uriel soon found comfort in the hands of another lover, prompting him to accidentally father a love child named Martin, the Martin Septim. Upon realizing what he had done, Uriel immediately cut ties with the mistress and ensured that his illegitimate septim son would live out his years as a peasant, far from the confines of a palace. Reports also claim that there was yet another illegitimate septim birthed by another mistress, and that was Calaxi's septim. But unfortunately not much is known about this individual, only that he was an archbishop.
My dreams grant me no opinions of success. Their compass ventures not beyond the doors of death.
Uriel Septim VII spent 10 years imprisoned in a dimension of Tharn's choice, probably an Oblivion realm personally curated by him. Tharn then proceeded to usurp the imperial throne by meticulously disguising himself as Uriel Septim VII himself. Jagar perfectly copied Uriel's exterior aspect by utilizing master levels of illusion, and then he focused on perfecting his usual routine so as the Elder Council doesn't suspect any foul play. Tharn managed to pause Uriel's aging process by slowing time itself, and this was due to the Amulet of Kings. The amulet would have surely alerted the Elder Council if Uriel died of old age. By slowing Uriel's aging process in Oblivion, Tharn subsequently kept raising his actual age, but without the side effects of actual aging. This may explain why Uriel ruled for such a prolonged time after his re-establishment. Tharn's intentions as his disguised lord are still uncertain. He delayed Uriel's initial conquest to reconquer Tamriel whole, and cared not much for foreign political affairs. All of this roughly butchered relations with most provinces, especially elven ones. His entire life in Tharn's Oblivion dimension consisted of continuous nightmares, both timid and vivid. At least that's what Uriel remembers. These dreams to this day weren't deciphered, not even by Uriel himself. His conscious self had no notion of the passage of time and kept reliving similar nightmares, which would in later interviews be labeled as indescribable by Uriel himself. Even though Uriel's conscious might not allow itself to discover what those dreams conveyed, his subconscious definitely served a huge part in knowing how Azur's prophecy would reshape the monolithic tribunal greathouses of Morrowind, a prophecy which would allow the Empire to reap the benefits of its aftermath. This enlightened subconscious of his most likely guided his intuition towards events that would benefit the Empire one way or another. His nightmares still lingered on, even after returning to Mundus. He sought out divine aid after his conquest of reuniting Tamriel, a sense of divine aid that would help him cope with constant nightmares displaying the fate of Tamriel.
This is where my journey ends. For you, though, the road is long and dangerous. Now, give me your hand.
Year 433 of the Third Era. The year of Akatosh has dawned. Uriel Septim VII still ruled over Tamriel entirely, but his dreams informed him of an imminent threat big enough to cripple Tamriel. He knew his end was practically near. Mehrunes Dagon, the Daedric Prince of Destruction, has gathered enough influence from the Mythic Dawn to commence his invasion on Tamriel. The Mythic Dawn swiftly hunted down and assassinated Uriel's legitimate sons, and Uriel Septim VII was their last final target. They did this to purge any known heirs of the Ruby Throne successfully. Uriel fled into the Imperial sewers through a secret passage with a prisoner which would later be known as the Hero of Kavach, the protagonist of the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. During the descendants into the Imperial sewers, Uriel briefs the hero on his only illegitimate son left alive, Martin Septim. You, the viewer, might ask, what happened to Calaxi's Septim, his other bastard son? Calaxes was an archbishop of the One in the Church of the Divines. He actively engaged in a rebellious conflict with his father, the Emperor, due to differing political views. He was eventually assassinated on the terms of witnesses claiming that he was forming a rebellion to establish a theocracy in the Empire. Martin Septim, on the other hand, spent his life as a common peasant, unaware of his royal blood. Martin was in all terms a biological member of the Septim bloodline. he was capable enough of wearing the Amulet of Kings in order to keep the dragonfires lit. Uriel told the prisoner that he envisioned a hero protecting Tamriel from impending doom in the time of need. Before he was brutally assassinated, he handed the renowned Amulet of Kings to the future hero of Kavach, with clear prior instructions. Uriel Septim VII's death temporarily extinguished the dragonfires, allowing for the barrier protecting the bounds of Mundus from Oblivion to be fully breached. When the dragon dies, the Empire dies. Where is the lost dragon's blood, the Empire's sire? And from the womb of the void, who shall stem the blood tide? So as long as the blood of the Dragon Prince runs strong in her rulers, the glory of the Empire shall extend in unbroken years. His heart's blood bleeds in darkness, for once the portals are opened, who shall shut them upon the rising tide? Forever reborn in blood and fire from the waters of Oblivion for Lord Dagon. Find him, and close shut the jaws of Oblivion.
No trophies of my triumphs precede me, but I have lived well, and my ghost shall rest easy.
Uriel Septim VII, the 21st Emperor of the glorious Septim dynasty, son of Pelagius Septim IV, father to Prince Geldol, Enmund, Ebel, Calaxes, and Martin Septim, husband to the bitter Empress Call of Uriah, the last flourishing emperor of Tiber Septim's empire, died on the year of Akatosh, year 433 of the Third Era. He reigned over Tamriel, restoring peace and order for 55 years of the 65 years he was crowned. Martin Septim preceded the throne in hopes of continuing the Septim bloodline's superiority, but to no prevail. Uriel Septim VII's death indicated the downfall of the empire almost instantly. The effects of the Oblivion Crisis brought nothing but carnage towards the Empire's legitimate provinces. The Dunmer felt ruthlessly betrayed by the Empire for retreating to Cyrodiil, and the Altmer took advantage of the Oblivion Crisis to forward their own nationalistic ideologies. The Empire was on a steady downfall, even after the Oblivion Crisis. The implementation of the Mede dynasty didn't help at all, it just accelerated its deterioration. The Septim dynasty came to an abrupt end which no one expected, not even Uriel himself. The Nine obviously foresaw this, Akatosh in particular. The Septim bloodline's continuity was delayed. Uriel's achievements were tarnished, and Dagon pillaged the essence of Uriel's life work. What an individual. A shame Martin Septim wasn't allowed to bask in the glory of his biological father. Gone, but not forgotten. Stay cinematic, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. This was definitely something I invested a lot of mental effort into. Trust me, folks, it took me a decent chunk of my free time. Which means that if you did enjoy it, drop me a comment explaining why. And thank you for your time. This was Xith, and have a good one.
I go to my grave. A tongue shriller than all the music calls me. In this I am blessed to see the hour of my death, to face my apportioned fate, then fall.